You're listening to Hustle and Flow, a podcast to inspire and bring together female actors and artists in the entertainment industry. I'm Heidi, an actress, female fitness coach, and self-love junkie.
And I'm Kesley, singer-songwriter and social media influencer. Are you ready to manifest your dreams? Let's get started.
Welcome to the show, Lesa.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So can you tell our listeners who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Well, as you know, my name is Lesa Wilson, and I am an actress and a host. And I feel like I wear a lot of hats. I'm a content creator as well, but I live more in the space of content creation for business, so small business owners and that sort of thing. So yeah, it occupies a lot of my time, but my primary love is acting.
And when did you become an actress?
My first television booking was in 2011. I was pursuing it before that, but I was doing more commercials than anything else. And then I finally got a role on Necessary Roughness. I was Stephanie number 1.
Wow.
And there was a Stephanie number 2. And of course, you know, we're like the fangirls.
So was acting something that you wanted to do like when you were a child, or is it something that you kind of fell into? I know you did American Idol. So did Kesley. I know you did Miss America. Can you like walk us through all of that? Take us through that, please.
First started my career with the goal of being a professional singer. And that like put me in this place of, I'm going to take voice lessons. I'm going to just record and just see what comes of it. My voice teacher during the first season of American Idol called me at my restaurant job and was like, you have to go to Atlanta tomorrow, because I wasn't living in Atlanta at the time. She's like, you have to drive to Atlanta because they're having these auditions for this new show called American Idol. And I was like, okay, what's this new show about? And she was like, it's a singing show and you need to go and sing. I was like, I'm working until midnight. How am I going to get up and drive to Atlanta and actually like be worth anything once I get there? So I was roommates with my brother at the time, and I told him what was happening. And he was so determined that I was going to go that like I slept. He woke me up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And then basically I threw on my clothes, just got myself ready to go. And he was like, I will drive you. You just sleep in the car and we will do this together. So we did. So we drove to Atlanta in this, blazing fury, and I slept the whole time. And then I got there and completely panicked when I got into the room. It was my first big audition, so it's like, it's a super intimidating space as it is. And then you walk in, and I had never been in an audition before. So, I'm a waitress at this point, and I'm like with this goal of being a singer. And, I froze. So I get into the room, there's 5 people in a row, because I don't know if they like still do the auditions that way or what, but whenever I was auditioning, that was how it went down. Couldn't get a peep out. I literally was so like everything was just choked up. Nothing came out. So needless to say, I didn't make it on the first season of American Idol. So you go home, tail between my legs. I'm so sad because my first audition was a total bust. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. I cannot keep this up. Like, what in the world? How do people do this auditioning thing all the time and be devastated all the time? So the next season came and went. I watched it. And of course, I'm watching it every time it would come on and music would play. I'd be like, I wish that I had the strength to get on that show. And so then the 3rd season rolls around. And at this point I was modeling full time. So I was on a job in Hawaii, and auditions were coming through Hawaii.
What was the job? Just curious.
Well, I was there with Hawaiian Tropic. And so I was like, there was a period of my life where I was a Hawaiian Tropic model and a Venus swimwear model. And so I was in Hawaii for 15 days doing their shoots and also doing like their big contests, because they always have contests. And that particular year, it was really interesting because a couple of the girls knew that I was thinking about auditioning and that my coach had been really encouraging me to go, because it was literally like 2 days after we finished everything with Hawaiian Tropic. So I would only have to extend my time a couple of days and it wouldn't be a big deal. It's like, whatever, enjoy a few days in Hawaii. Who doesn't want to do that anyway? The next thing I know, like the director of the pageant was coming to me and being like, hey, if you have a song you want to perform during the pageant, you can totally sing. And I was like, what? I was not really prepared for this, but I took the bait. I was just one of those people where it was like, if an opportunity presents itself, I'm going to dive in head first, no matter what the outcome. And yeah, I don't know how I survived my 20s, because that was how I operated. And so I did. I performed on the stage of the Miss Hawaiian Tropic National Pageant, and it was televised and everything. And this is 2 days before auditioning for American Idol. And I did an Aretha Franklin song. I had the most fun doing it. And that, for me, that was what it was about. I was just really enjoying performance. I'm a performer. I love performing. So that happens. I stay a couple days. My family is in Hawaii with me, by the way. And then, like, after the pageant was over, my dad came up to me. I was standing on the edge of the stage, and he said, I had no idea that you could perform like that. Like, no clue. And so it was one of those things where I didn't like have I don't think I had the full support or the backing, because it's like, doing what we do is such a pipe dream, and it is so hard, like every step of the way is difficult, and you're met with constant adversity and constant like shredding of your own ego and yourself. So I think that my family was really fearful that I would end up just being devastated by the industry. And so at that point it was like, okay, we all support you. So it was like this sudden push of support that came from my home that was really, really nice. So I go and I do the auditions, and they last, because I kept making the cut this time around, because I actually could get a sound out, because I had a couple more years of vocal lessons and a couple more years of performance and actually like doing things on stage and getting the nerves out. So I audition, I make it through, and I'm like, okay, I made the first cut. This is good.
So what are you thinking at that point where you're like, okay, like, you made it past, like, are you freaking out? Like, did you kind of already know, like, that you had this in the bag? You know what I mean?
I had no idea. And even like to this point, I consider myself an okay singer. Not like I am no Jennifer Hudson by any means. And she was on my season. I know, she's phenomenal, and the nicest person too. So for me, I was like, it could happen or it couldn't happen, and that's okay. Like, either way, it's fine. At least I'm putting myself out there and trying. Wow. And that was the main thing for me, was putting myself out there and trying, and doing it in a way where I had the opportunity to grow and become better because of it. So that was my whole motivation. So then I make the first cut. I have to continue extending my stay. And then I go back, I think it was the next day for the next round, and I made the cut again, and then again the next day, and then again the next day. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in a room with Paula, Randy, and Simon getting a golden ticket to Hollywood. Mind you, I'm a waitress, so I'm like, it was interesting, and I learned a lot, but I was really happy whenever I finally like made it through and was kicked off the show, because it was so, you probably know this, where when you're in a reality show, what you see is not what you get. It's just not. And so I was getting firsthand, I was experiencing that for the first time. And when everything finally aired, they had taken me and turned me into a character, because I was the model that was there, and sold me as like this person that only got through on my looks.
Right.
And never showed any of my performances. And I'm just like, you literally don't make it that far. Like, what? Yeah. It was devastating. As I sat and watched the episodes, my mom just held my hand while I cried like a baby. I was just like, it was so pathetic, y'all. It was so sad, but such a learning lesson right there.
What was the lesson, Lesa? Because I'm so big, like, sometimes life just sucks,
Yeah. Yeah.
And like my go-to thing, like the only thing that really has gotten me through some of the hardest times of my life is like, what's the lesson? There's a lesson in everything. So what was the lesson for you?
Yeah. That was my first introduction to having to have thick skin. If I was going to be successful in the entertainment industry, I had to be able to allow everything to just roll off my back like it was nothing. So that was like the primary thing that I learned from that experience, but also to never do reality television.
Yeah, did you think that maybe doing a reality show would hurt your like chances in the future? Was it something you thought about? Or maybe, I guess that was the beginning of reality TV, so it's like we didn't really, because would you do a reality show now?
Absolutely not. No way.
The
No.
career you have, you wouldn't do it?
No. Oh, no, 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 no.
You watch reality TV?
I don't. Mm-mm. Well, so many people do. I occasionally watch The Bachelor and Bachelorette, occasionally. And it's like one episode, and the whole time I'm just eye rolling all the way through it. Just like, why? Why is this what we watch? It's so ridiculous.
We were obsessed with Too Hot to Handle on Netflix. It was so good.
What other projects and things have you been on?
Well, after American Idol, it was Miss USA. That happened like 2 years after, and just another one where I walked into it and did not expect to win. I just was going in the mindset of what can I learn, what can I take away, how can I become better because of this experience. And then I ended up winning and was second runner-up at Miss USA. And yeah, that was amazing. Like,
what state did you represent?
Georgia. I was Miss Georgia USA. Yeah.
I was in Miss USA as well, but I was in, I didn't win the state. I was Miss California. I was Miss Bel Air.
I got to see those pictures.
Oh, there are pictures. Yes. I will definitely. And you're right. It was a learning experience because I remember getting off the stage and I did not get called into the top 20 and whatever. It's fine. But I remember getting off of that stage and this girl was crying and I walked up to her. I did not know her. And I touched her sticky spray tan shoulder. And I said to her, you are so beautiful. You do not need to be in the top 20 to know how beautiful you are. And like I seriously felt like I went through that whole thing just to tell this girl that, you know? So, but yeah, pageants, great times.
They're great. But then it moved on from there to modeling and voiceover and commercials. And then eventually it turned into television and film, which is where I am now. I'm primarily working in TV, film, and voiceover, which is wonderful. I absolutely love what I do. And you know, like my journey is what it is, and I've done a lot of things, and I'm not really modeling anymore, and I'm so thankful for that too. I remember there was this one photo shoot I was on a couple of years ago, and it's like you have a moment where you hit a wall sometimes, and you just know that that's the end. And I told another one of the models on set that day, I said, this is my last modeling job. I'm done. And I walked away. It was the same way I walked away from music, because after American Idol and after Miss USA, I was auditioning for every major record label. And I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had just performed, I had done this showcase thing at Big Machine Records for Scott Borchetta, who is the guy who put Taylor Swift on.
Yes.
And they, you know, they basically wanted me to change my life, move to Nashville, like take on this whole like country music sort of vibe. And that wasn't my jam, you know, like I'm more of like a singer-songwriter type, more of a jazz blues lover. And so for me, it's a very different type of experience as a performer. So it just didn't work for me. I walked out on Music Row that day, and my then or soon to be husband at that point was with me. And I looked at him and I said, well, that's the end of the road. We're going back to Atlanta and I'm done. I'm not going to do any more music. And so I walked away that day, just like I did with modeling. And so I'm really good about like having a definitive moment whenever something has run its course and being like, I'm out. This no longer serves me. This is no longer good for me.
Is that something that you were taught or something that comes natural?
I think it's just a natural thing, because I'm very in tune with myself. I definitely am good at just listening to whatever the inner workings are that are happening inside of me. And if I feel like I've hit not just a pause, but a dead end to where there's not a future in something, then I'm really comfortable with walking away. I think it's because I am so diversified too. I have the ability to do so many different things. It's never the end of everything. It's just the end of one thing, which makes me better in the other areas, because I can then take all the energy that I was putting into these other things and focus them onto the things that really matter and can take me to the place that I want to be.
Do you feel like acting was the thing that you needed to be putting all of your focus on?
I do. Yeah. At this point, especially, it wasn't always like that, because I didn't know that acting was going to be the thing that I really wanted to lean into. I found acting, or I should say acting found me through my path of doing all of these things. And when I first moved to Atlanta in 2006, I signed with Atlanta Models and Talent, AMT. And it was only because, like, the only reason they signed me was because I had been on American Idol and I was Miss Georgia USA. I had no credits. I was a nobody, other than I had these two massive things that I had done that I just kind of like sashayed into somehow or another, like, oh, that looks fun. I'm going to go over there and do that thing. Yeah. And, so then I come to Atlanta, and that opened the door for me to like walk into an agency. And so they're the ones that really like took me on the commercial journey and started helping me understand the real, like, true audition process and what it's like to work on these sets. And it was great. It took me a little time to learn, and I was really good at commercials. Just I would thrive in that commercial space, and I was working constantly. So it was one of those where I was like, oh, I like this. I like this being on set thing. I like being in demand and knowing that I can book a lot of things that I audition for. So that was really good. But when I started getting to audition for characters and to have the opportunity to actually like be on television shows, there was a different mindset in that I didn't necessarily have towards commercials. It felt more like a sense of belonging than any other place that I had been. So I did want to lean into it more, but as you girls know, it's a very difficult thing to be able to even like eke through the door. Like you can kind of peek in the window for a little while and you're like, hi guys, can I come play too? Yeah. And so I feel like that was me for a couple of years. And then I finally booked Necessary Roughness, Stephanie #1.
Yes. Yes, claim to fame, baby.
Exactly. I was very excited. I think it was Drop Dead Diva that I booked right after that, or it was no, it was Tyler Perry's For Better or Worse. So those two were like back to back. And then I had a window of time where I wasn't really working, primarily because my life was falling apart personally. I was going through a divorce. My husband and I had separated. We'd been together for, I don't know, I guess like 4 or 5 years. And things just weren't getting better. We were in one of those situations where it just wasn't working. And I moved out 2 years before we divorced. So we lived in separate homes for a while. And it was a matter of like this constant emotional pull of trying to make this commitment work. And it wasn't the right thing. And I think we both knew it. And there was a lot of anger there too. So I had to heal from that. And now at this point in life, we're great friends. So go figure. So I took this little break. And then once we actually divorced, then I started leaning back into it and started finding my way again. And that was like 4.5 years ago.
And you've been working nonstop. You're in Stargirl most recently.
Yeah, Stargirl's airing now. And I have 2 films that are slated to come out later this year. One is in July at Starsfell in Alabama, and then we have another one that is a made-for-TV movie for TV1, and it's called Coins for Love, where I'm a supporting lead. It was a really exciting role for me to book. It's the first time that I've ever been able to actually like have an opinion about the way that a script or a scene plays out, and that opinion be valued. So it's like I finally had a seat at the table, and knowing what that felt like, that's just... It's so different from being a co-star, like when you're a co-star, you go in, you're like, ma'am, here's your coffee. Have a great day. It's the hinges of the story. So you're there just to serve a purpose and to move the story from one scene to the next. So being in a position to where I'm actually like part of the meat and potatoes of the story, that was surreal and very, very exciting for me.
Like, was there a time where you just felt like you did not have it together and maybe you wanted to give up? And I don't know, did God have a role in that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go back to my divorce, because there's nothing more humbling than getting divorced, walking away from everything that you know, and starting over. We lived in this beautiful home, and it had this massive backyard that my dog could run and play in. And, you know, it was like, I could do yoga in my master bedroom because it was just giant. And so I moved from that house and into a 800 square foot condo that was infested with bugs. And, you know, it was like a very different scenario, but the rent was only like $800. And so I knew I could pay for it. At the time, I was only earning about $12,000 a year. And I know it wasn't a lot because I was dependent on my husband. And so I got a job waiting tables. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just went back into the restaurant business and was willing to do whatever I needed to do in order to survive. So survival and recovery was like the only thing that I could focus on. It was one of those times where it's like you sometimes have to sacrifice your passion and the things that you want to do in order to come out of a time, or even just get through a time whenever you're not doing so well. And that was that season of life for me. That was in 2016. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make my rent every month. And it was, this was my rent, you know, it's this tiny, and I had no idea. So I had to kind of relearn how to take care of myself. And it was a great thing, because that was whenever I really learned to meditate and practice gratitude on a daily basis for the things that I did have. So I had this ritual that I would do every night after I got off work at the restaurant. I would come home and I would put my yoga mat down in my living room. My tiny little living room was like this little sliver of a space that my mat would fit. And then I would just sit and meditate and think about all the things that I did have, the things that were good in my life. And instead of like being like, oh, things are so bad, like I'm not even able to do the work I want to do because I'm having to spend all these hours waiting tables. And instead of thinking about that, I would be very grateful. And so I would go around my condo and I would put my hands on every single item that I had purchased from the time that I started my life over. Because when I moved out, in our first separation, because we separated twice, so my first apartment, I took the guest room bed, and that was the only furniture that I had. Everything else I had to like recoup. And so I spent everything on like furniture and whatever I could recover. So I would take my hands and just place them on every single item that I had purchased since my first separation. And I would think about the journey that brought me to owning that piece of, like, whether it was a desk or a chair or a stool or whatever. And I would literally visualize like going to work, making the money, putting the money in my bank account, and then going to the store and picking out these items because they brought me joy. And so it was so powerful. And I had no idea how powerful this was. I didn't even know what I was doing other than trying to focus on the good. And so in this time, I would find myself like sitting for hours and hours and hours in my living room floor, just praying and meditating. And it got to the point where I could hear God speak to me. You know, it was like, oh my gosh, this is audible. Like, did you just tell me to check on that friend? And so you send a text message to the friend, be like, I kind of got this feeling that maybe you need to hear this particular thing right now. And then the response would be like, how did you know? And I like literally would like fall back in the floor crying, because I'm just like, oh my God, God is talking to me and I can hear him. So that's one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so real. And it's like when you focus on tuning into a higher frequency, no matter what chaos is going on in your life, it really does like narrow down the path and things become clear. So for me in my divorce and that whole season, like I was really burdened with not having clarity. I didn't know what the right decision was. I didn't know what the wrong decision was. I was so scared to move in any direction that it was paralyzing. And so the main thing that I would focus on was give me clarity, give me peace, give me clarity, give me peace. There's the only two things that I was asking from God was clarity, peace, over and over and over. And I would do things that would like constantly remind me to be grateful and just to focus on the good. So that was the season whenever I was falling apart, but found a way back from it really quickly through meditation and prayer.
Was that easy or was that hard? That's a conscious thing. You have to be so consciously aware to be like, oh, I'm in a negative thought right now. Stop.
Yeah.
Okay, what am I grateful for?
Yeah. At first it was difficult because I didn't realize how negative my mind had become. It was a very toxic place. And I knew that the only way that I would have the life that I had always envisioned for myself was to change that mindset. Because I, even in my earlier journeys, like through American Idol, through Miss USA, all the way up to that season of life where I felt like I was an epic failure, I never focused on negativity. Like I was broke all the time, like how do you make money off of reality TV? You don't. And so it was one of those things where I was just like, my credit was crap. I was not in a good place in so many different ways, but I still always focused on what was happening in my life that was positive. So I was just resorting back to my old way of thinking and focusing on the good and trying to find clarity and truth in everything that I was doing. And also like seeking healing and forgiveness. I was struggled big time with forgiveness. And it was because, in my marriage, I failed to see my own shortcomings. I think we all do that when we're in relationships. And so there was a time when I purposefully just reached out to my ex and was like, hey, listen, I did this, I did this, I did this. I didn't give you credit for this and this and this. I'm sorry. I owe you an apology. And I want to own that and make sure that you know that I'm aware, and hopefully like we can come to a place of peace. And so that was really hard to do. And I was so nervous. Oh my God.
Talk about vulnerable and just like ownership. Like the word, what I really want to say is big girl, like for a big girl. But like, I mean, you were taking ownership,
Okay.
that is so true, Lesa. Like we do fail to see our own shortcomings. It's so easy to just look at our partner and be like, I wish they did this, or I wish they were more like that, or they don't do this, or they don't do that. And it's like, okay, but hold on. This is a partnership.
It's a partnership. Yeah. Two-way street, and everybody is responsible for their own actions. And the truth is we react to things, and it's like our reactions are the combination of our belief systems and our wounds and our biases. So we have ideas about how the world should function, and in truth, that's just your individual experience. So until you're able to be empathetic and open-minded to see someone else's experience, then you really can't communicate in an effective way. Because one of my therapists that I had during that time said to me, listen to understand, not to respond. And so I had to learn to understand other people's perspectives, specifically his in that scenario. But it changed the way that I communicate with people universally, which is phenomenal. It's one of the greatest takeaways that I had from that experience. I did not realize that I was manifesting abundance during that time. I got an email or a message on Facebook from a production company that was looking for a host for some car dealerships. And it was just going to be an ongoing thing. There was a contract involved, and it was a 5-year contract. And they wanted to give me the job. I didn't have to audition for it. So they wanted to just give it to me. My first single dealership covered all of my bills. And I then, one dealership, all my bills. And granted, I had cut my bills back so far. Like I didn't have cable. I didn't have any of the fancy things, no subscriptions to anything.
Wow.
I was just like, I'm living bare bones. I was so excited about that. And then I got on a plane to fly to South Carolina 2 days later to meet the dealerships and like meet the people that I would be working with. And then I've been working with them ever since. And it has expanded. I've had multiple dealerships. I currently have 5 dealerships that I do. And so that was like the beginning of this season of abundance. And then after that, a couple weeks later, I am at my restaurant job because, I'm like, maybe I should just like do this for a little while before I release the thing that I know I can at least make $1,000 a month on. So I do it for a little while, and then I get a phone call. I had been auditioning, mind you, this whole time for commercials, industrials, literally everything that AMT was sending me. So get a call from Sarah, the owner of the agency, while I'm setting up for our shift that night. And she said, hey, I need you to find a quiet corner, grab a pen and a piece of paper. And I was just like, okay, this is the weirdest phone call to start, but sure, what's happening? And she's like, I'll tell you in a minute. Just tell me when you're in a quiet place. Okay, cool. I go get in my quiet place. She then says to me, so we're working on a calendar, all the departments, specifically for you this week. And I was just like, I'm sorry, what? What are you talking about? You booked everything that you auditioned for.
What?
That was my face too. You booked everything. So they were working with all the departments, all the clients. They were stacking my schedule. I had multiple jobs in days. I made about $15,000 in 1 week. And it was the thing that got me out of the restaurant business and put me back on my path of pursuing the thing that I loved the most. It was life-changing. That was a life-changing moment, a life-changing week. So not only had I secured these dealerships, I now had this surplus of funds that put me in a place where I could pay off the rest of my student loan debt. I was, yep. And I was able to like pad my bank account so that I no longer had to worry like where my money was going to come from for rent for the next year. For the year, you know, like I just was like, I'm going to put everything on auto draft. So that was the first point when I put everything on auto draft. Oh. It was a new thing for me. I had never experienced anything like this. I was just like, whoa, my bills are automated. What is this world I'm living in? So pretty cool, right? So then the trend continues and I start booking so much that it was too difficult for me to even work one night a week at the restaurant, because me working a night at the restaurant would mean that I woke up tired the next day and couldn't be 100% for whatever job I was working. I was in disbelief, but also like riding the wave of goodness, because I'm just like, yo, I spent months in my floor, literally like just being grateful for my desk and my chair and the food in my fridge. Even if it was like ramen noodles in the pantry, I was saying, I was taking a moment of gratitude, because I knew that having those things meant that I was wealthy in a sense. You know, it was like, I was fortunate enough to have a roof over my head. I was fortunate enough to have a car that I was driving, and I could buy food and I could slowly buy furniture. You know, it's just like, holy goodness, thank you for all this. It's amazing how like everything was kind of stripped away from my life and I had to rebuild it. And it was such a beautiful thing because it taught me how to be really, truly grateful.
Wow.
Yeah. So I put my notice in at the restaurant.
Kesley and I are just sitting here like thinking like anything can happen, right? Is that what you're thinking?
I'm literally thinking about going and laying my hands on everything when I get home.
It was one of those exercises that I just was like, I want to really like think about what it took for me to get here, because it was a recreation of my life. So It's powerful. And for me, it was just an exercise to remind me of how far I had come. It wasn't even meant to be anything where I'm like manifesting abundance. At that point, I didn't even understand what it meant to manifest anything. I just knew that I needed to stay in a positive mindset in order to be able to traverse the mountain in front of me. So I quit the restaurant job and kept booking. And at this point, it was like commercials still. I ended up booking a voiceover job with Belk, where I was the voice of Belk for the entire year. I did all of their commercials. And so I was in the studio every single week doing like anywhere from 5 to 15 commercials for Belk. Great experience. And then, you know, they switched to a male voice the next year, which is fine, because I had this whole 12 months where it was like, this is my jam, this is my deal. It was wonderful. Mm-hmm. And in this season of time, like financially what had happened, I wasn't focused on money. I was only focused on on just continuing to stay positive and stay focused on the good things that were coming my way and being grateful for every opportunity and not taking it for granted. So during that window of time, I paid off $40,000 in debt. I bought a BMW and paid it off in 11 months. And I built up an emergency fund that would support me for 6 months in the event that I needed it. So wow. That's what happened in that window of time. And I was just like, so this is what freedom feels like to really understand what it means to be financially free. That's something that, like, as an actor, especially one that's not a series regular, not like guest starring all the time, that's kind of unheard of. You know, we always have to have this side hustle. And I attribute it 100% to gratitude and staying focused on the good that was coming into my life and not allowing the negativity that I could have paid attention to at any point in time and allowed that to be my focus. That I think that that's the reason that things started happening for me that way. Wow. And, you know, granted, not every season has not been as abundant, but the thing that taught me was that it's available. And I don't have to be fearful that it's not going to come back around. It's energy, and it's just a matter of living with your hands open and being willing to release. It's like bless and release, bless and release. We give and we receive.
When you're on that roll of like, you're like, yes, win, 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 win. Has there ever been a fear of like, okay, but I might lose it all, or okay, all that might go away, or like, have you, like that self-sabotage almost, like, yeah. Has that ever happened to you?
Of course, absolutely. I think that that's a natural defense mechanism, because we're, especially in the entertainment industry, it's almost like you're programmed to expect the worst. I stopped anticipating the worst because I really do believe that the energy that I put out in the world is my emotional currency. And so whatever I'm putting out is what I'm going to get back. And I'm not going to say everything has been roses and sunshine, because it hasn't. It's been hard. There have been a lot of letdowns and failures, especially like during my hottest year in TV and film last year. I had a number of like crazy things that happened that could have derailed me, but I didn't focus on them. And so, yes, it's very easy to be fearful, like it's all going to go away. And I have those moments, like there will be nights, random nights. And I know at that point, like whenever I start to have one of these moments, like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll have a panic of, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to make enough money to like move whenever it's time to move. Like, what do I need to do? And my brain will start going into overdrive and be like, okay, so if I do this and this, and my strategy mind will start coming into play. And I'm just like, okay, calm down, take some melatonin and go back to sleep. And then tomorrow you're going to be fine. But that's usually the indicator that I need to get quiet again, that I've been doing too much. And I need to just sit back and listen and be willing to receive, because everything that is mine is going to come to me no matter how bad I mess it up or like go after it or not. There's a case in point. There was a commercial audition that I did many years ago at Stillwell Casting. And it was a lot of copy, and I was very nervous. And I went in and I was like, I'm going to botch this up. Like, it was so much copy that on the day of the shoot, there was teleprompters everywhere, you know? So it was one of those where it was like tons and tons. But for the audition, I had to be off book. So I go in and I think it was like a page and a half of just delivering. So I do the audition. I messed this up, I kid you not, 4 times. And by the 4th, just horrible moment, I sat back in the chair and I just went, oh. In the middle of the audition, I was like, I'm a failure. This is not for me. Like, somebody else is going to book it. The waiting room was full. Every heavy hitter in Atlanta was in that room. And so all I could think was, they can probably hear me messing up over and over and over and over again. I was in my head like, whoa. So the casting director at the time, Melissa, who is now on The Walking Dead, we all know her, she was just like, it's fine. Take a breath. We're just gonna like act like none of that happened and just do it again. And I was like, okay, number 5 is the charm. We're going to do it again. I did it again. I was still completely in my head, but I made it through the copy. So I was like, okay, all right, it's a win. I made it through. I walked out of there and I was so embarrassed at how terribly I had tanked that audition that I was like, they're never going to see me again. Like they're probably never, ever, ever, ever going to want to see me in this casting office again. Then like 3 days later, I booked it. And
oh my God.
right. That's why I say what's meant to be mine is going to come to me no matter how bad I mess up getting there. It's going to be mine. And what's yours is going to be yours. And, you know, and so that's the thought that I had to keep coming back to and reminding myself of, that whatever is meant to be is going to find me. And I am just going to allow the things that are mine to come. It's also the reason that I can audition for 100 projects in a year and book 3 and be like, it's cool because those 3 were meant to be mine. The other 97 were not. And
you don't know what's down the road. Like the best is yet to come. I love that. I love that saying, the best is yet to come. I'm always affirming that. How do you handle negativity when it comes up in your life, whether it is something personal for you, like if it's something that you have to deal with, or even if it's like, I don't know, sometimes people have things like in their family that are going on, you know, that like require your attention. Like, do you choose to give it attention, or if you're truly like, this is just too much?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I don't feel obligated to give anybody any of my time. I don't owe that to anybody. Nobody owes that to anybody else. And so I have boundaries in place that I have to adhere to. And so for me, like whenever something happens, like if I feel like someone has wronged me and it just like takes all of this energy because I'm focusing on it, then I'll have a few conversations with a couple of my closest friends and be like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm processing. And then we get to a logical point of what needs to happen to move forward and let this go. And then every time I start to have like an emotional response, then I just turn back to what will be, and I have to just allow God to like let this thing move through me. And just like you were saying earlier, Heidi, is I have to find the lesson. Like, what's the lesson? So I immediately go to what's the lesson? What am I supposed to learn? Because we know history repeats itself. If you don't learn the lesson, you're going to continue to find yourself in the same types of positions with the same types of people or situations, and you'll be revisiting these things until you learn what it is that you're supposed to learn. And it's not necessarily that the universe is bringing it back to you. I don't think that the universe is vindictive like that. I think that it's just that we make decisions that put us on a particular trajectory based on the feelings and emotions that we give power to. So for me, it's really like, don't give power to it. Allow it, acknowledge it. I'll grieve. I allow myself to walk through a couple of days, but after that couple of days, I'm cut off. I don't allow myself to just go down that rabbit hole because I know that if I go in that direction, I'll go hard. I'm 100%. I'm all or nothing. So I'm either going to like 100% be focused on the problem, or I'm going to be 100% focused on the things that make me grow and thrive.
I'm emotional. Lesa, what does persistence mean to you?
Persistence means not getting to the finish line first, but knowing that you're going to get there in your own timing. Because it's not about being first. The person that gets there first doesn't necessarily always win big and in the big picture of things. I think that for me, like, persistence is kind of the theme of my life. Like, I have been in the entertainment industry for over 20 years. And so I could do a number of different things, but it is where my heart is. So I stay with it. And I do believe that every experience that I have on this journey, and not to sound cliche, it's about the journey. I think that it makes me a better actor. I think I'm more empathetic to the people that I come in contact with, and I have a greater impact on the people that I get to invest my time in. If I am patient and I just take in all the lessons and enjoy the small wins, because in every race, there's small wins, you know? It's like booking a co-star, then booking a guest star, and then whatever. You get the best headshots of your life. Like, these are all little wins, and I celebrate all of those things. I don't wait for the big thing. So I feel like I'm constantly winning. I know where I want to be, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But I mean, we live in a world of anything could happen. So I could literally book something tomorrow that changes my entire life, right? It's true for all of us. It's like, hello.
Our lives can change tomorrow.
Right. How exciting is that?
Real quick, do you have any crazy on-set stories?
Yes, I was on set shooting Logan Lucky, and I was hired through Extras Casting to be a tech advisor. And it's because I had my experience in the pageant world. So they had this pageant scene, and they needed a tech advisor on set to be able to make sure that things were happening as a real pageant would unfold. So that was my job. Now, because I was an actress, the casting director was like, we're going to put you on a SAG actor contract as opposed to putting you on a tech advisor contract, just in case there is an opportunity for you to be on camera. And this casting director used to be one of my agents at AMT. So we were like, okay, I see what you're doing here. Like, you're just setting me up for the possibility of something great happen. So in my mind, here's what I did. Manifestation, once again. In my mind, I'm over here like, oh, I'm going to be in this movie. I'm not just going to be behind the scenes. I'm going to be in this movie. You just wait and see. So I am on set day 2, and I'm standing with all the extras, and we're just waiting to do this pageant scene. And then I hear Steven Soderbergh calling my name. I was like, why is my name being called? I'm so confused. So they rush over and grab me, and I walk up and I see the director, and I'm just like, hi, I'm Lesa. That's me. What are we doing here? He was like, I'm going to give you some lines, and we're going to put you in the movie. I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is actually happening. This is happening. Crazy. So then he takes me up on stage because we're doing a pageant. Takes me up on stage, puts me at the podium, and starts writing lines on a note card for me. And I was going to be the introduction to the scene because I was now the MC of the pageant.
Wow.
Woo!
So that was a very surreal moment where I went on as a tech advisor and ended up with an IMDb credit and lines, and in this movie where and literally dragged out of a crowd by Steven Soderbergh. And
wow.
Right, crazy things.
Seriously, your whole story is inspiring me to just stay positive. It is a choice. It's a choice.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times I'll speak for myself, I feel like life's happening to me, and one of my affirmations is life is happening for me, and so I can choose joy. I can choose to be happy and understand that we have an almighty God who is going to work everything out, and he can do far more than I can do. And, we just have to give it all up to him. So, amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
We just went to church.
Yes, I feel like that. So, Lesa, what would you tell the version of you who was about to step on stage for the first time? That girl who, knowing everything you know now, that girl who, was the waitress who was going to go audition for American Idol, what would you say to her?
Don't get too comfortable. Complacency is the slow killer of dreams. And so if you get too comfortable in your success or your lack of success, then it can hinder you from being able to really take the next hurdle, get over the next hurdle that's going to take you to the next space. And a lot of times in growth, it's not an even kind of drive. In the beginning, it's you're like, oh, I want to star in a commercial. Okay, that's this move. It's this big. And then I want to book a co-star. It's a little bit bigger. But then from co-star to guest star, it's a lot bigger. And then from guest star to series regular, it's traversing an entire mountain. And so if you get too comfortable where you're at, then you have a risk of not being willing to grow and make the sacrifices that you have to make in order to be able to get to that next place. So I would tell that younger version of me, never get too cozy where you are, because that's the danger zone.
Wow. Gorgeous. Beautifully said.
Is there anything you want to tell our listeners about that you're working on or doing, or where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely tune into Stargirl. That airs on Monday nights on the DC Universe app, or you can watch it at 8 p.m. on the CW on Tuesday nights. And but watch it on the DC Universe if you can, because it's a shorter version. Some of the scenes get cut for the CW to fit the format, so try to see it on DC Universe if you can. There's a free 7-day trial. And then I have a film coming out in July. I don't know what theaters we're going to be in yet, because it's not like a big budget feature film. It stars Fell in Alabama. I'll have to keep you guys posted. I'll do that on social media on that. And then Coins for Love is going to be on TV1 sometime in August, and you get to see me as a blonde.
Yes.
I wear a blonde, super blonde wig, and yeah, so that was going to be really fun. I was supporting lead in that film, and that was the last thing I shot before we went on the lockdown for coronavirus.
Instagram, so that we can follow you.
Yeah. Instagram is Hello Lesa. Twitter is also Hello Lesa. And you can go to my website if you want, lesawilson.com. If you want my acting work, just click on the acting link and it'll take you to my demo reel page. And it's Lesa with an E, L-E-S-A.
I'm so inspired.
I am too. I had no idea how awesome you were.
Love you guys. You're so sweet.
I am going to cry when we hang up, okay?
Well, I'm sending you a virtual hug through the video.
Love you. Love you so much.